Our next guest was a multi-sport standout at Spotswood High School, solid basketball player, starting quarterback, and a dominant left-handed pitcher. So dominant that he was selected in the 2013 MLB draft by the Houston Astros in the 10th round, right out of high school. Please welcome to the Rock the Curly W podcast, Austin Nicely. What's up, Austin? How's it going,
What's
brother?
happening, guys? Good to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming on. First of all, man, we really appreciate you having you on. But got to tell you too, you're one of the guys that stuck out in my head when Mercer and I first started this podcast about these local sports and kind of it being a gold mine. We had to get you on. 10th round pick out of Spotswood, man. That's big stuff. So,
Well, thanks, man. I first of all, good to be here. Look forward to it, and yeah, it seems like a little longer now. Looking back at it now, it's back to 2013. Seems like getting older.
yeah, man, we graduated together in 13, and now
That's right.
We're old heads.
Now it's like I try to remember how old I actually am. I'm like, I'm still 24, right?
Yeah.
But I'm closer to that 30 mark than I was to 20, and now I feel like I'm just turned 21. But
yeah, don't remind me.
That's right. It's never getting any younger. That's for sure.
That's right. All right. First off, we want to talk about the importance of being that multi-sport athlete that you were. A lot of the debate out there about whether kids should play more than one sport or whether they should just specialize in just one. The question I ask is kind of what advantages and skills do you have over a guy that, or maybe over even yourself, that you wouldn't have had as just a single sport athlete?
Well, I think it's huge to just compete in all sports. For me, it was about becoming a better leader. Not specializing in a sport allows some bad overtrained habits to not kind of leak in. For me, it was about really baseball was probably my second favorite sport behind football, and then basketball was my third. Football is one of those things that I truly loved. I love baseball. I loved all three. But the good news about being a three-sport athlete, you never had time to dwell on any season really or any skill set. You were always competing to try to, during football season on the weekends, you may go play some baseball, but football was the focus. Or you may go to an open gym, but football is the focus. And same thing, basketball season, I was lucky enough to compete for some state championships and do some runs there. And I, get my throwing program in as the spring season was coming, but you never really had a whole lot of time to really dwell on it per se. And just being an athlete, I think for me, it was more about becoming an athlete as a whole, which certainly helped me on the mound and obviously on the field aspect of things, but running, jumping, doing different things. And it threw me off when I got into pro ball and then I was specialized. It took me a little longer to kind of figure out my rhythm, how I wanted to work and do things when it did get kind of more specific, and just helped me to always go back to just being an athlete. When in doubt, kind of pick up a football and wing it around. So I think there's huge benefit, especially for high schoolers nowadays. I feel like there's not any three-sport athletes anymore. Because everybody's worried about that next season of the baseball season or what sport it is. Just have fun and be an athlete and let yourself develop completely rather than trying to force, a certain skill.
Yep. Well, a guy that would definitely agree with you wholeheartedly on that, and a guy that helped you train to be a multi-sport athlete, Mike Martin, just came on the podcast last week. Talk a little bit about what Mike has done for you in your career.
He's been huge. I went to him, I guess, I had some back issues through high school. I think I went to him maybe my sophomore year, like 2011, when I had to sit out a basketball season, with some nagging injuries and stuff like that. And really at that point I had been doing some lifting, started lifting probably my 8th grade year, throughout the summer, but nothing really in season. And it kind of took me into a new approach for, what strength training should be about, how to utilize it in the off season to prep, and then how to keep it going through the in-season format to make sure that we maintain and really just get healthy and stay healthy. That was a big thing is, as a high schooler, I guess I was putting out a lot of torque, a lot of speed, explosiveness, but I was weighing probably 165, 170 pounds wet. So I couldn't really, my body wasn't built to withstand the power and the torque that I was putting out. So it was a big thing of learning how to strengthen, the main, core, legs, back, different stuff like that, to make sure that I was able to perform every day. And that got to the point where, I was beat up a little bit. So Mike's been huge. And ever since then, really, I guess we're going on 10 years together now. And the big thing is growing together. I mean, there's stuff that we did then that we wouldn't do now necessarily. There was stuff that I came up with that I wanted to do, probably wasn't necessarily right. I'm sure he would, say the same as far as just the growth together. The game's always changing. There's different things to do. And he's been great with, always wanting to stay on, what's new, what can be productive and what's best, but not forgetting kind of the core values of what got us here.
Well, and you talked about the growth of his business and stuff too.
That's right.
We talked a little bit about last week when we were in that building that was ceiling to floor
That's
of
right.
nothing but windows, and it would get hot as all get out in there in the
Yeah,
summer, and it would be
I
freezing.
kind of got lucky. Y'all started it. Y'all were the kind of the OGs of
Yeah.
taking stuff to the track and stuff. But I came in. Me and Tuck would go when he was in the building. I was there probably 2 or 3 years, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Then I was lucky. I went off for my first pro season. When I came back, he had the new building.
Yeah.
So from then on, it's been luxury per se. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a grind there, especially coming in the summer. No heat, no AC in the summer, and then going after school into that little sweat box.
That's right.
But it makes you appreciate it. I mean, the kids today, I say, kind of get a little spoiled with what it takes to kind of grind a little bit, and understand, especially you guys, y'all would come from Page County, or he'd meet you there to go on the track. I mean, kids don't understand that anymore.
That's right. Go ahead, Mars.
So in 2013, being selected in the top 10 rounds, obviously you were one of the best draft eligible players. At what point in your baseball career did you realize that, like, I'm better than a lot of the guys you're playing with or competing against?
I think,
as soon as I picked up the ball.
Yeah, I mean, probably at 3. No, I mean, it was one of those things of I always had the confidence to compete with anybody. But you don't know how good you are until you test yourself against some good competition. So I was fortunate enough to start as a freshman, and do some things. So I would say, like, my freshman year, the funniest story is I started game 1 for the JV squad my freshman year, against Sharando. I think I lost 1-0. We didn't score anything. I gave up 1. I think it's unearned. I'm going to say it's 1 unearned anyways.
There you go.
So I give them a loss opening day. Next day I get called up to varsity. JV team goes 19-0. They end up 19-1 on the year, and I give them the loss. So JV coach that year was Tim Leach, who's the AD at Spotswood now. So he always jokes, I screwed up their perfect season. But I think at that point it was kind of like, hey, I can compete. And I never really looked at it from an aspect of like, hey, I'm better than these seniors or anything. But I was like, hey, I'm going to compete and, hopefully excel. And then I would say more towards my senior year, senior year, as I was going through showcase, you go on the showcase circuit, as you get older, you kind of get a quick feel for, hey, I'm either got to do this or, I'm going to get overmatched. So it was always a thing of trying not to be overmatched. And then senior year, when I went on some draft, started getting invites to some draft workouts and stuff like that. And then you go see, your draft eligible players, whether it's JUCO guys, you're all in together, high school guys, JUCO guys, college juniors, whatever it is. I remember going to a workout at Safeco, out in Seattle, and I get the ball first in a little scrimmage game and have to face a junior who is, I think he led his JUCO or his college with like 25 bombs. So you get the test real quick where it's like, hey, either compete or go home. And so I think at that point you kind of, I knew where I stood, but I would say still, even then, until I got to pro ball, and then I was like, oh crap, I'm here,
Mhm.
like now, obviously somebody thought I was good enough. Let's do it.
Well, you talk about all that, going through the showcases and things like that. You were committed to play baseball for UVA, who at that point had just come off a 50-12 season. They had just lost to Mississippi State in the Super Regionals. Um, what was your recruiting process like with Brian O'Connor and the Who's? Like, was there a spot where they saw you and instantly fell in love because you just dominated, or how did that all go?
For me, it kind of came quick because I didn't play a lot of travel ball growing up. American Legion was still a thing then. Little League was still pretty big. So I worked a lot on my own. Me and Dad in the backyard. So I guess it was my freshman year. I finally figured out that, hey, the showcase circuit is probably my best bet to be seen. So I got on the Richmond Braves national team. And from there, it kind of transpired pretty quick. I competed, I played pretty well, and next thing you know, you got a couple offers in the bag. And then from there, it's always a bit of a game in the recruiting process of, so and so doesn't want to offer until they offer, and then how much did they offer, and then it's always kind of tricky. And for me, it was my first, I guess, endeavor of like a business more mentality of, and I feel it's unfair for any freshman or sophomore to kind of have to deal with that, but it's the
Yeah.
way things are now. So it happened within about 6 months. I threw a couple games. I really was playing more as a position player at that point. I really wasn't throwing a whole lot. I would start a game here and there on the weekend or come in and close, but otherwise, basically, I had my first offer from Coastal Carolina, and then from there they kind of trickled in and got a couple other ACC schools and went on my first visit to UVA, unofficial, and they offered me on the spot. And at that point, for me, I wouldn't say UVA was like my top one to go to school. I grew up a Carolina fan, huge Carolina fan. Um, had an offer from Carolina, but turned it down to go to Virginia. For me, it was more about, I have a ton of family here locally. And I wanted them to, they supported me huge in high school. And I wanted them to be able to come see me, a quick 40-minute drive over to Charlottesville. That was kind of my ultimate decision on top of, Coach O'Connor, obviously one of the best at his craft, standout guy. They were super competitive, top five at that point. Didn't know that they were going to go to a College World Series, but figured out, that's the goal. So everything kind of aligned that, I think Virginia was going to be the best spot for me to grow, both as, a position guy and a pitcher, and then hindsight, it didn't matter anyway.
Yeah. Go ahead, Merce.
So speaking of that College World Series, looking back now and knowing that UVA would win the national championship, what would have been your sophomore year? Is there like any part of you that wishes you would have gone to UVA and not straight to the pros?
I would, I feel like I get this question a lot, as to be expected, but I would say no. Even though I think winning a College World Series is obviously a, top 2, 3, 4 thing that you can do in your life as a baseball player. For me, it kind of hurt a little more because Coastal won the year before, and then
Yeah. Anywhere you would have chosen.
Virginia. So anyway, I technically could have got it.
Did you
Who
get an
knows if
offer
I
from
actually
Vanderbilt too, or?
I could no, I wasn't quite there yet. But who knows? I could have been the link that didn't get them there.
Yeah. Yeah. Who knows? It
But so
might
I
have been
could have
like
kept
that
them
JV
from.
baseball team.
That's right. I'm famous for getting you a quick loss and then going undefeated once you get rid of me. But no, I mean honestly, I wouldn't trade anything. And that's nothing against college baseball. It's nothing against UVA. Being able to dream as a little kid to make it to the big leagues. For me, I'm fortunate enough that I can still play professionally, so that dream hasn't ended yet. So, that I was fortunate enough that came true. I don't think if you asked me as a freshman or sophomore when I committed that I would ever have even said I would have been drafted. I was full force going to UVA, and then we'll talk about maybe a draft or going to the big leagues. But the way it transpired, I would super pumped for the guys in my class that I knew that were able to win it. We had a great class coming in, so I knew they were going to be successful. And I was pumped to be able to compete against those guys. But ultimately, I wouldn't trade the draft process or my minor league career so far for anything.
The draft process was kind of odd for you too, right? Didn't you get drafted while you were sitting in graduation?
Yeah, so I was kind of it was 2 day, I guess 2 day the way they break it up. The first 3 rounds were the first day. Slim chance I was going there, but you still had to watch it, which was kind of miserable because it kind of set up picks behind that, I guess. Then the next day was 5 through 10 rounds. Obviously my agent, everybody was saying probably fifth round, fourth, fifth round was what we were looking at. Fourth, fifth round came around. Didn't get a call, but in the fifth round, the Seattle Mariners called me. They had a college guy fall to their, I guess, fourth or fifth round pick, where they were going to take me. But that was the first year of the slotted draft where the money, it was, I guess, basically everything was slotted out. So you had a minimum cap that you could spend. So they had to use up more money for that pick. And me being a high school guy, I guess I had some more leverage. So I had to obviously set a decent number to not, go to college. So they couldn't even come close. So I had to make the decision that I was just going to go to college and turn down. So I turned down Seattle on the fifth. At that point, I thought my draft was over. Really hadn't heard any other teams. I had 3 teams, in the running, basically. Those teams kind of had guys fall different ways. So at that point, I was full set that I was going to Virginia. So I had to graduation that night. So I'm heading to graduation. I'm pulling into graduation. Dad calls me and it's like, hey, Houston wants to take you in the 10th. You got, 30 seconds. What do you want to do? And I'm like,
Whoa.
well, what do you think I should do? And I credit my dad a ton, because he helped, be able to navigate and kind of keep the pressure and all the kind of hoopla and drama away from me my entire high school season. The stuff he was dealing with, I like him to write a book so I could, appreciate it more, I think. But his best advice was, in the 30 seconds that he's on the phone with my agent, who's on the phone with the GM, he was like, hey, it's enough money. It doesn't even matter at that point. If you want to go play, go play. And at that point, it was like reassured that, man, this is what I work for forever. I think it's time, I want to go play baseball. Let's go play baseball. So I was able to, say that, but I was literally getting out of my car, grabbing my cap and gown to go meet, all my high school buddies to graduate. So I had it pulled up on my phone to try to see my name. And I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want, it not to happen. I've seen that before.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't want like a huge hoopla around it. So I told my best friend, we sat there on my phone while we're waiting, getting set up to go in graduation. And I told one of my favorite teachers, that was it. And so we all watched it on my phone. I saw I was drafted. And at that point, my phone starts to blow up a little bit. So then we go into graduation. I don't remember a thing from graduation. The only thing I remember is somehow when I walked across the stage, my principal knew that I gotten drafted somehow.
Nice.
And he was just like,
congrats.
congrats.
Too, man. He's
That's
underneath
right.
the podium there.
He was like, congrats. Hope to see you on TV one day. And I was like, that's cool. But then other than that, I don't remember anything. But yeah, it was super crazy, but I wouldn't necessarily trade it for anything because the stories and the memories from it all, for sure.
Well, some of those guys that you were drafted with in 2013, Chris Bryant, Clint Frazier, Cody Bellinger, Tim Anderson, what a class, but among a lot of others.
That's right.
But a guy that we wanted to ask you about is a guy that also got drafted to the Astros in the 5th round, Tony Kemp. Kemp played a huge role for the Astros these past few years. I think Mercer said he's with Oakland now.
That's right.
Was drafted, like I said, 5th round from Vanderbilt. Did you spend much time with Tony? If so, like what's he like off the field?
So I was fortunate enough to spend, my first instructs with Tony, and then throughout minor league spring training camp, he was always a class ahead of me, being a college guy. But I got to spring training. I got to, he got to play behind me a couple times, and I got to be in the clubhouse with him a lot. What you see is what you get with Tony, man. He's full of energy, a lot of fun, super nice guy. I wouldn't say that we're, best friends by any means. But I feel like he's one of those guys, if you reach out to him, message him on Instagram, text him, whatever, he's going to hit you back. Even though he's a super successful big leaguer, as he should be, just one of those guys that I feel like probably felt like he was kind of looked down upon a little bit and proved everybody wrong, and just one of those guys that brings it. If I have to put a lineup out there, he's in it every day, just from the energy, the competitiveness that he brings, and the fun really to the locker room and the dugout. Yeah, I mean, he's one of the one guys that I was like, you can't root against that guy ever. He's just all around, true professional, I would say.
So there's a lot of talk, or there's been a lot of talk about the minor league lifestyle and like the grind of it. What was your experience like in the minor leagues?
I like to say that my perception is a little different because, I came from riding school buses, from Spotswood to Page County,
That's right.
different stuff like that. So, now if I was, I went to UVA and I'm riding nice charter buses and we're staying in Marriott's, I probably would be a little bit more, looking down on it. Now, with that being said, it's a grind. You don't get paid very much. You don't get very good meals. You don't get, super nice buses. You don't stay in really any hotels. It was motels a lot early in the lower levels. But my perception was you don't want to be comfortable there. I mean, I agree that it's probably a little low. Probably could pay the guys a little bit more of minimum wage because guys have grinded their entire life to get there. But at the same time, the goal isn't for a guy to be a career single A guy. The goal is to push yourself and motivate to get to AAA, get to the big leagues, where it gets a little nicer. Still not super nice. So it's a super grind. 100 for me, going from a 20 game high school season to 105, 130 games was a huge jump. Something that I think a lot of people don't think about when you go to get drafted. And every day, I mean, you're going to the field every day. Spring training, you're there at 7:30, 8 o'clock. You leave at 2 or 3. In season, you're at the field at 1 o'clock. Games at 7. You're not leaving until 11. Then if you're on the road, you're going back to a very below average hotel probably, where there may only be McDonald's to eat that's still open, or a Sheetz gas station to grab a snack or a sandwich.
Hey man, those
So
$2 Sheets dogs hit. Okay?
underrated for sure, and I think never can turn your nose up at them.
That's right.
There's been many a nights where I'll text Dad and I'll be like, "Listen, only option is Sheetz. What do you think I should get? Like, I need to try something new." But yeah, I mean, it's super. I think you can't fall. I had a veteran tell me one time, you couldn't fall victim to the grind, or you can't fall victim to the suck. And it doesn't suck to be a pro ball player for sure, but it's not easy either. So you kind of just got to embrace it. I had a lot of fun. Never really looked at it as like. I feel like that's the most asked question too. Is like everybody's like, "Oh, how bad is it?" I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, you get to play baseball every day. I mean, I feel like I got that from Kratzy too. Kratzy is one of those examples of, man, who cares? I get to go strap them on, and as long as I can strap them on every day, life is good for sure.
Absolutely. With the world shut down last summer, a lot of leagues didn't play. I don't even think they had a minor league system last year, but you went ahead and played in the Rockingham County Baseball League last summer and
That's
came
right.
back and got to play at home. So you spent some time on the bump, but you also played at the plate as well. Actually killed it for the Cardinals. But what was that like to come back and play locally?
Man, it was a blast. I was fortunate enough to play a little bit in 17 while I was hurt and I got released. Um, but it's one of those things. Everybody always talks about the county league. And when you're young, you're like, okay, Dad, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's your glory days. I get it. But once you're in it, there's nothing better than your community behind you. They care. They're diehard. Doesn't matter who you play for. That's one thing that's awesome about the county league is you can't go to the grocery store without somebody pissed if you lose to Clover Hill. or, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's like, hey, you're going to win the championship this year. That's all we care about. And I feel like there's nothing like it around the country. That's why I think, the county league is like a hidden gem. Until you're in it, you don't get it. And it was a ton of fun. I played for Dad, obviously growing up a little bit until I was about 12. Him to manage, and see how that relationship has kind of grown. Him asking me for some stuff. I'm like, dude, you're the manager. I'm just here. My cousin behind
Adam,
the
your
plate.
3-hole hitter. I can't.
That's right. I tell you, he's tough. I was almost certain that we weren't going to play. I was staying sharp. Fortunate enough, we have some pro guys here around the area with, Brendan Hanafy, and we had some other guys that were here just for their girlfriends last summer and different stuff. And we were able to go out probably once, twice a week and go live all the way up until, through May to stay sharp, which was huge. And some good high schoolers too. But once I knew basically probably wasn't going to play pro, I was talking to a couple guys I knew around different leagues, and then our manager in York, and it just wasn't looking like they were going to be able to line up all the logistics. I was like, Dad, I probably am going to be able to play this season. I'm going to start hitting a little bit, make sure, because my thing is I never want to be bad. And if I'm bad in anything, I'm just not going to play. I'm not going to just be out there. But Dad was tough. Like the first we scrimmaged once, and he's like, you can go in the 10 hole and get you some at bats and see what happens.
The old extra hitter.
And so game one comes around, and he's like, we would have family discussions, with my uncles and different stuff. And they would be like, Austin going to play this year? And he's like, well, if he can crack the lineup, I don't know where he's going to play or anything. I'm like, dang, Dad, give me some credit here.
Yeah,
I feel good.
man.
I'm swinging it okay. And then first game of the year, I think I was in the 6 or 7 hole. I'm like, he's not playing around. Like, I'm going to have to prove myself here. Got some hits early. And then slowly, sprinkled back into the 3-4 mix. But cousin behind the plate, that stuff that you'll cherish for a long time, no matter what, what it's all about. I'm sure one day, his brother is a high school junior. So at some point, all three of us hopefully will be on the field together, unless I have a huge big league career, which is that would be ideal.
Yeah.
But stuff like that, man, you packed house. There was not much to do last summer, so we were averaging 300 people a game. In little town of Grottoes, and everybody cared. Made a little bit of a run. I thought we could do a little better, but ton of fun. A lot of good guys. Seeing the mix of high school guys, some good high school guys to good college guys, and even like the old guys who played in college or didn't play at all, but just have been county league guys for 10 years. I mean, there's so much to learn from, so much good baseball, and everybody cares. I mean, that's the big thing. Is it's tough to find sometimes, especially in pro ball too, that everybody cares to win. Like whatever we have to do, wherever I have to play to win. And I told somebody the other day, pro guys who could play in that had a huge advantage last year, because a missed season is sometimes career ending for guys.
Yeah.
And especially at my age, I can't really go a year without being able to compete and work on my stuff. So that we're super fortunate, especially out of all pro guys nationwide, to have a chance to be one of the only leagues that played last year.
So we also want to congratulate you on signing back with the York Revolution of the Atlantic League. You're still getting paid to play baseball for a living, so that's got to be awesome. What will the Revs look like this year, and are you guys like top of the Atlantic League?
I super enjoyed my time so far in York. I got fortunate enough. 2019, I guess that was the last season that we had. In 2019, we made a run in Evansville in the Frontier League where I was in the playoffs. Got beat, came home for a week, and got called that they wanted to trade for me for the last week of the regular season for them, and then going into the playoffs. And so I was there. We made a little run. I think we were second in the league at that point. A lot of good guys. I mean, the thing about the Atlantic League is, I think there was a stat of something like 50% of the guys have big league time. So at that point, you feel like you're at least a step away as far as just competition wise, and trying to compete against, former big leaguers. So we were super competitive. I'm super pumped to get the I guess the 21 season going. Looks like we have a lot of returning guys, and we've picked up a lot of good talent. So yeah, I hope we're in the heat of things. It's a long season. They play almost, I think, 140, 150 games, almost 162. So that's part of that's going to be almost a new thing for us now, because going a year without playing that many games is trying to weather the storm of the summer as far as the amount of games. But I think our manager Mark Mason does a great job. He's been there a long time of getting a lot of good players. And I'm excited to have more time with him. I was only there for about a week and a half, 2 weeks last year, or 2 years ago, I guess. So I'm super pumped to get back, obviously playing, competing, and then being around just a pool of talent. Really, there's so much to learn. Even though I feel like I'm almost a decade in of playing pro ball now, always someone better that you're trying to chase after, and always something you can learn from somebody.
Well, you talk about guys that have some major league time. One of the teammates that you got traded into is Melky Mesa, a guy that played some big league time for the, I believe, both the Royals and the Yankees. I know the Yankees
Yeah, I think
the
the
most.
Yankees. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so he was the player of the year for the team in 2019, fifth in the league in hitting, a perennial all-star, a guy that just really absolutely rakes looking at some of his stats. But tell us about the man that they call Daddy Shark.
So, like I said, I didn't get a lot of time with him, but in that time, my locker was a couple lockers down. Fun, enthusiastic, and loved coming to the park every day. I mean, he was just almost like a little kid. I mean, those guys are so much fun to be around. You can't tell if they're in a slump. You can't tell if they're on a 20-game hitting streak. They're always the same, and they're always having just as much fun. And I think that's why so many people like him. He's a fan favorite because he interacts, he enjoys the game, and people can't go without wanting to be like him or watch him play. And I just got that off of 2 weeks that I was there, and I think that's something you always forget, especially everybody talks about the grind, and you talk about it's your job, but having fun. Dad told me in my first couple of years of pro ball, I'd had some hiccups, some injuries, some just bad luck, and I was starting to get a little bit, upset with the game as far as just not having as much fun. And he came down to spring training one day, and he's like, "Hey," and he listed guys out, and one of those guys was Brett Phillips, who obviously was, Mr. October this past year with his walk off and stuff. But he's like, look how much Brett's having fun all the time. Like, he's like, I've seen him play 4 games this week. I've seen him go out and do pre-work in the mornings. He just loves being here. Like, and those guys for some reason have success because they don't care. They're having fun. He's like, go back to having fun, like, and enjoying the game. And I think ever since then, I was able to see those guys and try to be one of those guys. I'm not a big like entertainer as far as being quite as social, I guess would be the term, but I try to have as much fun and compete, and just every day I go to the park is like the first day I stepped into a clubhouse. So I would say, that's why I think Melky has been so good. Super fun, and obviously talent is the same, as far as everybody has talent anymore. You're not there if you don't have talent, but it's what you do with it and how you treat it. And he works his butt off and has a ton of fun doing it. So I want to be more like him. So that's one of those guys that I want to feed off of for sure going into our beginning of the year.
Awesome. Marcy, you got anything else, brother?
I'm good to go.
Cool. Austin, awesome interview, man. Thanks for spending some time with us. We really appreciate you taking some time out of your day and coming on. And we definitely both wish you luck on the upcoming season. So
thanks, man. I appreciate it. Really enjoyed it. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. All right. That's Austin Nicely.